Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Junkies Podcast. Joining me in this week's episode is Mike Barnett, a traveling welder doing structural steel, manufacturing, and millwright work all across the U.S. In this episode, Mike and I discuss his journey from starting his own custom shop to becoming a traveling welder. We also discuss the importance of adaptability and continuous learning in the welding profession. We'll get right into it after a quick word from our supporters. Today's episode of the Junkies Podcast is brought to you by CK Worldwide, the seasoned veterans in TIG welding since 1967. CK Worldwide has been honing their craft and delivering top-notch torches, parts, and accessories for decades, longer than most of us have been alive. If you haven't experienced the CK Flex Lock torch yet, you're in for a treat. Imagine a torch with a head that can rotate a full 360 degrees. Talk about versatility. Whether you prefer gas or water-cooled models, CK's got you covered. And let's not forget about their SuperFlex cables offering unparalleled flexibility and durability, ensuring you can tackle any project with ease. But that's not all. CK Worldwide continues to innovate with products like their Gas Saver kits featuring glass nozzles for improved gas flow coverage, and visibility while saving on gas consumption. Plus, their latest MT375 AC/DC welding machine comes complete with a water cooler and cart for ultimate convenience. When it comes to TIG welding, CK Worldwide sets the standard. We're also brought to you by SendCutSend, one of the most innovative sheet metal services in the industry. Get custom parts delivered to your door for less than the cost of running your own plasma table. SendCutSend gives you access to services like laser cutting, CNC bending, PEM inserts, powder coating, and more, all under one roof, all with just a few clicks. Just upload your DXF or STEP file and you're good to go. Standard orders are out the door in 1 to 2 days. They keep over 165 different types of materials in stock, including metals, composites, plastics, and woods. From a one-off prototype or a full production run of thousands of parts, SendCutSend can support you. Don't have access to CAD software? No problem. SendCutSend has you covered with free parts builder templates you can customize, or you can work with their design team and send a detailed sketch or an actual template of what you need, and they'll take it from there. The best part about SendCutSend, your parts are manufactured right here in the United States in one of their 2 facilities, Reno, Nevada, or Paris, Kentucky. Check them out today at SendCutSend.com and tell them the Arc Junkie sent you. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather, the makers of top-quality welding gear built proudly in Pasadena, Texas. Outlaw Leather handcrafts each piece using only the highest quality leather, ensuring your gear stands the test of time. My friends over at Outlaw create the coolest custom pieces in the industry. They're the originals. Don't be fooled by copycats. Support the folks that put this design on the map. Reach out to Outlaw Leather for one-of-a-kind leather welding gear like welding hoods, bolt bags, arm pads, rod pouches, utility belts, tool scabbards, and more. You can also email them, info@outlawleatherllc.com to place a custom order, or visit outlawleather.com to pick up some of your favorite in-stock pieces, all still handmade. And as a listener to the Junkies Podcast, you can save 15% off on all their in-stock leather goods when you use code word ARCJunkies in the discount box at checkout. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Thank you for downloading show number 330 of the Junkies Podcast.
You're listening to the Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Big Mike, what's up, man? How you been? It's been a minute.
I'm doing good, Jason. I've been doing pretty good. Just been busy like usual.
Yeah, you working a lot?
Oh yeah, I'm right now in Lebanon, Kentucky right now.
Okay, what's going on over there?
Well, you see, the company I work for, we are substitute workers in a way where we go to places and factories that don't have the manpower or the skilled men that they need, and we're there for 3 months, 4 months to a year, depending on the place. And we are there to just help catch them up where they fell behind on. And then we leave off to the next job site.
So is this like, you doing new construction? You doing like manufacturing? Like what type of industry?
It's mostly manufacturing, but I have done work with a subcontract out in the field, ironworking and stuff.
So you do a little bit of everything, right? Manufacturing, construction, rebuilds, repairs, shutdowns.
Pretty much, I've done a lot. Pretty much used Most things I've done, the only things I haven't done yet are underwater welding, and I wouldn't say I've done pipeline, but I have welded on pipe for like molasses lines or steam lines for certain plants and stuff.
Yeah, underwater welding's fun. I got to do that at Ocean Corp a couple years ago. They brought a bunch of us out there to do kind of like a dive for a day or whatever. So we got to weld underwater. It was a really cool event, but I could not imagine doing that as a daily job. Not at my age. I mean, I think I was probably 38, 39 at the time. And damn, the helmet that they put on you weighs like 40 pounds. It's like a solid chunk of brass on your head.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty stout. But I think it was like a one size fits all just because there were so many of us. I think once you get into it, you have your own dive helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can probably get something a little bit lighter and a little bit easier to work with. But
or at least get used to it.
Yeah, I felt like a newborn baby, man. I'm not used to having that much weight on my head. I was like a little bobblehead. But yeah, it's cool. It's just that's a really rough type of work to get into. It's a really difficult industry to be in, and I think that's why it pays so well. But it's also why a lot of people don't stick with it. A lot of the folks that I've had on the podcast that have done underwater welding, they only did it for like a short stint, like less than 10 years.
Yeah, I've heard a few people who are big into that Ocean Corp thing in Texas. I heard him talk with another Instagrammer about what it's like at his school and stuff, and basically how some people, they say the myth of life expectancy of underwater welders are very short. I think it's more like their willingness to stick to it is short.
Yeah.
Because you're out in the ocean a lot, you're sometimes in that little chamber way too long and get a little bit of a cabin fever, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much same. I don't think it's so much of a lifespan issue as it is a career span. Right. People do that 5-10 years. It seems really cool from the pamphlets, and like the paychecks and all that stuff, but it's physically taxing on your body. And once you're offshore, man, like you're working around the clock.
Right.
You got to get out there and get that stuff done. I mean, they're the company that's hiring you. They're paying big bucks to get the work done, and you're out there with nothing else to do but eat, sleep, and weld. Like, let's just keep working.
Yeah, definitely.
So now, how'd you get lined out with the type of work that you're doing now? Because you travel around quite a bit, right?
I've only been doing this job now for about 2 years now. It's my 2-year mark last week, actually.
Congrats.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is I've been welding for almost about 10 years total now, out professionally. But originally I'm from Kansas originally, and there ain't much welding desired. It's more agriculture, and there's usually most of the farmers there just usually try to fix it themselves with a little cracker box or something. And then if they get something they can't handle, they bring people like me and the company I used to work for originally when I first got out in the field. And then I eventually got good at field welding, learned ironworking, millwright work. And then I eventually some stuff happened with me and some of my coworkers and my foreman. We kind of started butting heads a little bit. Kind of went through a downward spiral for a while. And then eventually I ended up going into this fabrication shop in around northeastern Kansas, and met a bunch of guys there that were subcontractors. And I asked them like how exactly that worked, and they said, "Oh, we just stay in hotels or our campers, and we're only here for as long as they want us, and then we're out to the next job." And I was like, "Doesn't that get boring after a while?" He said, "It does, but we can also decide if we want to go ahead and leave or not, and we can come back if they still need us. We can jump back and forth if we need to." And so I decided to start looking for one, and I ended up with this company. And so far, I've been in Kansas, Ohio, North Dakota, and Tennessee, and now Kentucky.
Oh, nice. That's a lot in a 2-year time span.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a lot to take in, especially seeing all the road and everything and seeing some of the views of the places that you go to.
That's when I was doing structural steel iron work. A lot of the guys that I would work with, they'd travel for like a good, 6 months, a year, and then they'd come back and kind of stay local for about a year or so. Then they'd get that itch because traveling pays more money. You're out there, you're making per diem, you're getting a lot of overtime. So they'd go out there and they'd chase that work for a little bit, come back home, relax, 6, 8, 10, 12 months, and then they'd turn right back around and, go hit another shutdown or stuff, something like that. And it's a different way of life, man. I've never done it. I got out of the military and I thought about getting into that traveling gig. I put a couple applications out, had this one dude, Sandy Quinlan with MK Industries. This dude used to call me every Friday like clockwork. I think I put an application in on Indeed or something that I could weld and, put my resume up there. And he kept trying to hire me. He's like, man, I got a job for you. And this time it's in Louisiana. I got one over here in Texas. And I was like, man, I'm kind of done traveling. I don't know why I submitted that application, but it's good money, but I'm not gonna be able to do it. Like I got out of the military and I was bouncing, the whole time I was bouncing from one spot to the next. And it's like, man, I just want to plant some roots and just like relax and get something, half-assed close to the house, be able to go to work and come home every day.
Yeah, and I actually had plans on having something like that. Just call it fate, call it an act of God or something. He just had something else in mind for me. So I originally back in Kansas, I had wanted to open up my own custom shop, and I wanted to do customized fire pits, grills, smokers, bumpers for trucks, and I was doing all right for a while. And the problem was that in Kansas, it's not going to sell real quick, and it's not going to not be a top seller because people want just something that's functional. They don't care for decorative that much. And I mean, I rigged out and started helping out a friend of mine who did a bunch of plant shutdowns for beef plants and pig farms and stuff. And I helped him out for about a year and a half and kept doing my stuff on the side. And then I ended up meeting up with a local union. Well, the thing was I didn't know they were union until later. But they were coming to my neck of the woods to come work on a new plant that was going to be built. And I get a random phone call from some guy from Minnesota. And I was like, who the heck do I know in Minnesota? I thought it was like some telemarketer or something. I answer the phone. I'm like, hello? He's like, is this Michael? I'm like, yeah. He's like, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm with this company. I was like, I don't know. I was like, okay, and? I don't know you. And he's like, you're in Southwest Kansas, correct? I was like, yeah. He's like, we're going to be there in a couple. I saw your application on Indeed, and I saw that we needed a bunch of welders who are local. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, then I met the guy at the job site, and we ironed out the details, and I started working alongside them and everything. And I was supposed to be welding for them, but this is actually when we were at the ending part of COVID. So there was a bunch of supply chain issues, worker issues, and also they were trying to mandate that vaccine for the truck drivers. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of these precast pieces were coming from Colorado to Kansas. So once the whole mandate was going on, a bunch of truckers just were up in arms saying we're not moving then. So a lot of the supply problem was going on, and eventually a lot of us ended up having to go back to Colorado to go help at the facility that was doing the precast pieces. And they found out that I was a non-union worker, and some guys kind of freaked out a little bit, and they're like, what's this guy doing on our job? I said, your project manager called me. And I told him, like, why would you bring on a bunch of local guys? I was like, because they don't want to pay so much for per diem, I guess. I don't know. It's like, I'm here to work. So I'm not here to cause any problems. I'm not gonna hook up with you guys and go down the road. I'm here for this job. And if y'all want to bring me on for another job, then awesome. I'll still work. And it worked out. It's worked out okay for the most part.
That's pretty good. So you're still non-union?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Just Kansas is not really known for its union. We're more of a right to work state, and a lot of people like to keep it that way. And I kind of like it that way anyway.
Florida's the same way. That like I did the union thing for about 5 years, and it's not doesn't have a very strong presence down here. I mean, it's like anything else, and that's what I tell people. It's like I'm not pro-union, I'm not anti-union. I'm pro-worker, and whatever's good for the worker. Like if that's how you want to support your family, go that route. More power to you. If you want to go the opposite way, you want to join the union, like go that route. I mean, it's not a one size fits all. Like nothing is. And, you know, to say that everything's got to be black and white is just ridiculous. Like if it works out for you, you know, have at it, man. But don't knock me for, you know, running it this way.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like how a bunch of schools always used to push college on people, saying that was the only way to become successful. And yeah, I did go to college, but I only did it for 2 years and then went right into the workforce and learned more out in the field than I did in the shop.
Would you go to college for? What was like what concentration?
I studied welding and manufacturing, but I was an associate's in science.
Oh, nice. At least, I mean, at least that's related.
Yeah. I had 3 welding instructors. One of them actually wasn't had no college degree under his belt, but he had a CWI and he was a level 2, and he also was a CWE. And the other instructor, he had an associate's and CWI and the CWE also. And I think the third instructor, all he had was a pipe fitting knowledge and pipe welding for the most part. And that was kind of the interesting part about that college I went to. They had no bachelor's degrees in there. They just had pro workers, strong work ethic, and that's the way the president at that time wanted it.
Did you go to the same school that Bryn, Bryn welds? He does the, damn it, I can't remember the name of his podcast now. I'm gonna
Iron Insight.
Yeah, Iron Insight. Damn it, I'm having a brain fart. Did you go to the same college?
No, he was. I think he was in Nebraska. I was in Kansas. Nebraska.
Yeah,
I was from. Okay. I went to Dodge City Community College, the land of all the old westerns that you know, like freaking Bat Masterson, the Billy the Kid, and all them.
Yeah,
this Kitty, and they still do that kind of stuff there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I when I was working on my bachelor's in construction, and then I found out, I was like, oh damn, there's actually degrees in welding, but there's nothing down here not even the southeast of the United States. It was like I'd have to go to at the time it was like Laterno, Ferris State, and The Ohio State. And I was like, man, I can't, like, I just had a new kid. I was like, I can't, or I think my second kid, I was like, I can't uproot my family and go to Texas or Ohio or Michigan. Like I can't. So like I'm stuck. And then I started looking into, I was like, well, online was just becoming a big thing with, the school that I was at. We were doing a lot of online training. I was like, well, maybe I can just do it online. No, there's hands-on practical stuff you have to do at the school. So I was like, damn it, man, maybe I can, just get certified down here, and that'll, pacify the requirements of the lab, because I've already been in the industry at this point for like 10, 15 years.
Right.
But yeah, it was a no-go. So I was like, well, maybe, it's not for me. It's not in the cards.
Yeah. I mean, you used to host the Weld.com stuff before Bo and everybody else took over, right?
Yeah, I did that like 2019 to 2020. Well, I contracted like part-time 6 months prior to coming on. And then right when I left the full-time position anyway, I did did another 6-month contract. So I would actually drive out to Clearwater, where they're based out of, over the course of a weekend. And me and the camera guy, Todd, we would shoot 6 videos between Friday. I'd get there Friday night at like 6, 7 o'clock. We'd shoot like 6 videos between Friday night and Sunday afternoon. And then I'd drive back home, go back to work at the college for, the next week. And then they would slowly release those videos out over the, about a half a month or about a month, because they'd put out 1 episode every week.
Right.
And then I'd go back. They'd still have like roughly 2 in the bank. And then I'd film like another 6 videos, and then it'd bounce back over this way.
Seemed to work out real well.
It did. I just got tired of driving all the way over there. And then, the times that it was like, hey, you got to, I'm working this weekend. I was like, shit, man, I'm going to be working 14 days straight, because I work a week at the college, work the entire weekend over at Weld.com, and then come back and then work another week at the college. And I was like, yeah, now screw that. I'm kind of done. It was a lot, but I really enjoyed it, and it seemed like it helped out a lot of people. So
right.
It was a good time.
Yeah. The Weld.com actually helped me out with a lot with, when I started doing this travel welding, because there's times where I go onto a job and it's something I haven't done in a while, or maybe I'm not so familiar with it, quite frankly. So we'll hop on the website and I'll see if I can find some videos about it, or at least get a general idea, and then go ahead and try to do some rough practicing before I go off to the job, and then go do the test.
Yeah. And YouTube's an excellent resource. Like you said, if you haven't touched that process in a while and you're like, man, how do I, fill in the blank? I want to do some gas shielded flux core. Okay, go in there and they walk you through the settings and everything. Here's how to set the machine up, the polarity, gas composition, flow rates, wire feed speed, voltage. They go through all those and you're like, oh, okay.
Or even the sound that you need to hear.
Exactly. You're like, that's what it should sound like. Okay. And then you go into the weld test with a little bit more confidence because you've obviously done it before. You just need to brush up on it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that in Kansas, they didn't require a bunch of CWIs or being a part of the AWS at all. So because basically it was just if it holds, then go. It's good. Then the looks of some of the welds, you're just like, no, You just want to take a grinder to it and just I'll fix it for free if you just let me fix it.
It'll hold corn. Let it go, man.
Yeah, basically. For a while, I didn't have to have any CWIs or any certs under my belt at all. And when I left college, I actually had a 7018 3G test under my belt by the time I left. And obviously it aged out, and I never had to have it again until I started doing the traveling. And even that's mostly just MIG welding for spray arc welding for the most part.
That's good that you're doing spray arc, though. A lot of companies are like, nah, put short circuit on that, It's like, no, you spray that shit.
Yeah. Or a lot of the places I actually go to, they'll either have you just tack it up or something and then load it into their jig fixture and let the robot do the welding, and then you fix what the robot screwed up.
Oh, so you're actually doing cobots and robot stuff as well?
Yep. We do a little bit of we do a little bit of everything on this job because we majority of the jobs are MIG and TIG jobs, but there are times where if somebody messed up on the assembly line and noticed it till it was too late and it's out there and yet somebody spotted that, hey, this doesn't look good, or looks like there's a crack developing right here, and then they'll just send out a guy with the generator welder and then refix it all and then try to repaint it all. But we touch a little bit of everything.
Okay. Now, when you go from one job site to the next, do you have to do any weld tests or just show proficiency or anything like that? Or you just show up and unlock the gang box and, start hitting it?
A little bit of both. It depends on the job. The job I'm on now, it didn't require a weld test. They just said, if you can visually see anything wrong with the weld, that's their only requirement. But, the first job I went to in Ohio, I had to do a 2G pulse test. Had to pass it on the first try, and luckily I got past it. And then I was supposed to be there for 6 months, but it ended up being only a 3-month contract because we over delivered and got them caught up where they fell behind. And then I ended up going to Fargo, North Dakota, and had to do a spray arc test. And I went to Lynn Welding School to go do that certification, and I got past it and worked at that contract for about 2.5 months. And then Christmas hit, and then I ended up going to Tennessee, did another 2G test. It was supposed to be X-rayed, and it did get X-rayed, and everybody on my team passed. So we were there, and now we're here in Kentucky, and basically they just said just make sure that the pieces up against the jig fixture correctly and make sure there ain't no porosity, undercut, overfill, or any of that stuff, and just hit a button.
Damn. Now, do you have is there a QA on site that they, once they pull it out of the fixture, they kind of go over it and tell you what you need to fix, or you're just visually catching stuff and making those repairs on your own?
But it's a bit of both. Usually most places only have maybe 2 or 3 QCs, and they're having to inspect nearly 90 to 100 people a day or so. So they usually they trust your judgment that you know what you're looking for. But when it goes down the assembly line to painting and final touches, if they see something that's being a frequent problem, then they're going to bring you over and see what's going on and see if you're purposely just being lazy or if you're just incompetent at the job.
Now, out of all the type of work that you do, because you said you do a little bit of iron work, a little bit of millwright type work, fabrication, manufacturing, what's your favorite? If you just get up every morning and go do one specific part of the industry, what would it be?
Well, I do like the fabrication and the manufacturing for the most part. For one, it's a little more steady because you know your hours and everything, and you're not at the mercy of the weather, the heavy machinery working for you one day and then crashing out the next day. And some of those, but there with the manufacturing, it's like it's clock in, clock out. You know your hours, and then maybe sometimes they'll allow you to work later if you want to, and then make the extra overtime. But manufacturing's pretty good for the most part, and surprisingly, you see a lot of it when you think about it.
So you kind of like the reliability of, setting a schedule and all that and kind of sticking into it?
Yeah.
Having a routine and all that?
Yeah, and I mean, if it was possible and back home, I would take it. But again, not much of that's available, and whatever that's there as well, and it's mostly just field work, and then maybe the oil and gas industry, whether that's building the oil tanks itself or making trailers or something, or fixing trailers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't been out to Kansas, but I know like what you're talking about. It's a lot of farmland and stuff like that. I was talking to Bob, and yeah, I mean, if oil and gas is booming, I mean, there's plenty of work to go around, but if not, I mean, there's really not a whole lot going on.
Right. And one of the biggest oil guys in Kansas, he unfortunately passed away last year, but he gave a lot of jobs to a lot of guys out there that are still there to this day. And he's pretty much he was the guy that a lot of people knew.
And so I'm still waiting for hydrogen to kick off. I was talking to Bill Newell and Scott Wachowski and Mike Miller about a year ago. They were talking about like this big, like hydrogen's, going to be the next oil and gas type boom. No pun intended, because it's hydrogen.
Right.
But they were going to be running new lines for hydrogen to transport that back and forth between, like some of the northern states down to Texas, out to Louisiana and all that stuff. So I don't know if they kind of figured that out. But I mean, if that pops off, that's going to bring, put a lot of people to work, because you can't rely 100% on electric.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to do, switch over to solar and wind power and all that stuff. Yeah, that's great if you got access to solar and wind power 24/7. But the problem is it gets dark. Certain parts of the U.S. aren't very windy. So, I mean, there's got to be other ways to power homes, electricity, cars, all that stuff. Hydrogen could be that resource. And if it is, that's going to put welding smack dab in the middle of everything, because they got to figure out how to weld that stuff to transport it.
Right. Well, it's actually crazy is that in Garden City, where I'm from, there actually is there became a big boom with wind and solar. And there in my neck of the woods, there was an area where we had a lot of wind turbine parts coming in on train, and there was a big old abandoned building that this company bought, and they used to store up solar panels and stuff and special crates. There I learned more about wind and solar power, and I also found it kind of ironic how a lot of these green energy people are trying to say that that's the only way to do things, but yet the way it's transported is with diesel, coal, oil. It's like you got to feel the irony in that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, and I'm all for like going green, lowering the impact and all that. I think the U.S. comes up with like 8% of the global emissions. So it's even if we went net zero, it's still not going to put a dent worldwide. But yeah, it's got to be like a menagerie or an amalgam of a lot of different things. There's not a silver bullet. It can't be 100% wind, can't be 100% solar. And that's the problem is like, okay, you want to build all these fancy cars, you want to put all these Teslas and stuff on the road. Well, they require these rare earth minerals.
Right.
Well, how do you mine those? Heavy equipment. What's that heavy equipment run on? Diesel.
Yep. Certainly not run on unicorn farts.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, you gotta start thinking about this. It's like California wants to have all their vehicles by 2030, 100% electric, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, your grid can't currently support the amount of cars that you have that are electric right now. How about you build the infrastructure first?
Right.
So people are all, they're constantly putting the cart in front of the horse. And it's like, let's step back and think about this,
Yeah, and then if you also remember that big polar vortex that hit Texas, and for nearly 2 weeks they were without power. Like, I can only imagine what some of them are going through right now with that flooding that happened recently around
Yep.
Houston.
Yeah, they said, I think that grid's like 10 years behind where it's supposed to be or something like that. Because Texas is I think it's the only state that has its own power grid. It's not tied into anything federally.
Makes sense.
But it's kind of like behind the times as far as, and I would imagine now, especially after, 2020 with an influx of people moving into Texas, like the grid's continuously getting taxed. So
Right.
I mean, but that's going to be like the next big thing is like solar energy, wind energy, like manufacturing parts and components for that. Like I know some people that are involved with like welding up the battery trays and all that for the electric vehicles.
Yeah, and
So,
I've
I mean,
actually.
Go ahead. No, I was going to
Okay.
say there's a lot of industry that's going to come from, these different alternative green energy sources.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was a lot of those wind tower parts and stuff. They all are made out of thick steel. And some of the guys that I've worked with. They were actually at one of the plants that built the tower parts, and they said that the amount of movement and the amount of steel that they were moving, and then the amount of beads that they were laying in there with sub arc welding, it was just a lot to take in a lot of times, and trying to make sure everything lined up perfectly to match everything, where everything was flush, and a lot of hammer work and a lot of using vices and benches just to line up everything perfectly before it could all be welded up.
I could only imagine those things are massive. So you said you're up in Ohio. Well, like what part of Ohio were you in?
I was in Canton, Ohio, right as soon as I left Kansas.
Okay, so did you go by Cleveland at any chance?
I drove past it, I believe.
Did you see Lincoln's wind tower that they have out there?
No, I don't think I did. I think I might have skimmed it or something.
Holy shit, their windmill. I think the blades are it's like a 200-foot span. It's massive. I think it's the largest one in the state of Ohio. And I want to say it provides their company, because they've got two buildings, one on either side of the road. I think it provides 10% of their power consumption, which is a lot, because I think just their manufacturing floor alone for their engine drive area and some of the inverters that they build on site there in Cleveland, I think that's over 1 million square feet. Plus they build all their 7018 electrodes, so they got furnaces and stuff running because they got to bake the electrodes.
Right.
But it's a massive, massive windmill.
Yeah, I believe it. And you actually be surprised. If I remember correctly, there were like 4 different size blades that we'd have to offload on the train onto special little stands that would help keep it stable while we were waiting for either it to be loaded on a truck or back onto a train to wherever it was going to be built. And you see the massive links. It was basically like the size of a football field, and some were actually even longer. And I was just like, good Lord. It's like you only see it from a distance, but when you get up close here, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah. So at Lincoln, they played a video of how they, I think they had to bring it in through the port or something like that. But they've showed videos of it kind of driving from wherever it got loaded on the trucks, down to their facility. And it's like, they had those massive trailers, where you kind of, it's like the part is on 2 separate trailers.
Right.
And both trailers can steer independently, just to navigate all the sharp turns and twists and everything to get it on site. It's literally a modern marvel how they do that stuff.
Oh yeah, trust me, I've seen all kinds of trailers that people have come up with, and the pilot car drivers, they got like a whole Bluetooth set that just makes sure that they're controlling the end of the trailer so it doesn't swerve and hit something or hit somebody. And then they actually have to close up traffic half the time for each component to get transported at the same time and within the same distance of each other, because if a trucker gets too far ahead of his pilot car driver, they're out of signal, and the trucker's got to stop and regroup with everybody because they all got to stick together.
It's a crazy convoy, man.
Yeah, it runs like a fine-tooth army almost.
So now with the work that you're doing, because you bounce back and forth between industries, right, and you're on the road, how much tooling do you tote with you?
Well, for the most part, it's just bringing a hood and your FR attire and any other pieces of equipment that you might need, whether you're going to be in the fabrication or in the TIG side, if you're going to be doing any TIG welding. Most of the fabrication places, they provide you the gloves, the welpers, any other kind of small part that you might need, But hoods, most of the time you have to provide your own hood and your own replacement parts and stuff.
Okay, so you don't have to tote like a gang box with you everywhere you're going?
Not with this company I'm with. The contractors I first met, they did have their own gang boxes and their own tool boxes. Some of them had those giant Milwaukees with all the little special tackle boxes and stuff. And we usually get a brief description of what the job is, and what exactly we need to bring with us, if there is anything we need to bring. Because other places, they'll just provide us with some of the stuff that we need.
So do you get to go home in between these different jobs, or do you go from one job to the next?
It kind of depends on us, what we want to do. I usually try to go off to the next job as soon as possible. And because, well, that's what I want to make the money.
Yep.
And I also want to get out of the debt I'm in right now. Joys of adulthood.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but I do usually go home, and I'll sometimes either be waiting maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. Every now and then I'll spend some time at home, get some of my affairs in order if I need to take care of stuff at the bank or with my home. And then whenever I have all the details of the job, I go wherever it is, whether that's driving or flying. Most of the time it is driving. Yeah, we get there and then get ready for orientation, go through the weld test if there is one, and then meet the managers, meet all the guys that's training you, and then basically you're on your own after that point. If there's ever any issues, either call the project manager or talk to the shop foreman that's there.
Now, are you kind of traveling with the same crew every time? Do you have like the same kind of coworkers, or is it like different from job to job?
It's usually some of the same people. Just everybody's kind of they all just live in different states, and we all usually get sent to different jobs to different locations. Because if I remember correctly, we have about 5 jobs going on right now, and we just had some guys just leave Burbank, California, and some ended up in Fargo. Some of them are actually getting sent to Ohio again for another job doing fabrication and laser cutting and all that stuff. And when I leave and when I get close to the end of my contract here in Kentucky, which will be like the first week of August, I should have a general idea of where the next job is and if I got it or not. And then how much time off do I have? And then how soon do I need to get there? And what do I need to do? Or how long I'm supposed to be there?
So they kind of give you a heads up before that job's ending, like here's some of the opportunities we have, here's what you're going to need for job X, Y, and Z and all that?
Yep. Some of the old timers, they told me that the rule of thumb for them, what they would tell me is when you get to your 1 month mark of your end date, as long as they don't cut you short, your project manager will touch base with you, see if they are offering a contract renewal or they're not going to renew you or something. And then if you decide to not renew or they don't offer it, then you call your recruiter, and he or she will tell you what the jobs are available, what type of welding it is, or wherever the job is exactly. And then you will then they go into, if you say yes to you can do the job, they go into a huddle with a bunch of the other recruiters, and then basically becomes a battle of my person can do this, my person's done this, my person can do this, blah, blah, blah. And then the owners of the company will say, we'll take him, her, him, or how many positions they have open for whatever part of the job is. And then we'll get the word if we got it or not. If we got it, then we get our drug test scheduled, and then we know when our start date is. We get our travel plans made, and then let's go.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. Whether you're looking to pick up your first machine, upgrade from your current one, or equip your small business with new machines, Everlast Welders has you covered. They offer machines for every skill level, budget, and welding process, including true multi-process welding machines like the Lightning MTS series. Check out their full range of power sources at everlastwelders.com to find the perfect machine for your needs. And as a special offer for listeners of the Arc Junkies podcast, when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal, You can get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade by typing ARC Junkies in the comment section at checkout. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. Now let's get back to the show. Now, because you have like different, like you were saying, recruiters and everything, do they kind of negotiate pay from job to job, or do you have like a set rate that you make with this company and it's that way no matter where you're at?
It depends on the job. Some jobs are more pay, some are less pay, and some are just the standard pay. And just this job that I'm on right now, it's not the best pay, but it's stable. It's stable right now. But there are some of those jobs that we go on where it's big money. Like there was an aluminum TIG job over in Oklahoma that I was really excited for because I used to be really good at aluminum TIG welding. And my recruiter, she pulled a Hail Mary on me and said that this is my first contract. If I failed the weld test, then I would have automatically been fired from the company I work for. So that she pulled a rabbit out of the hat and said, I pulled your contract. I'm not going to set you up to fail. I was like, but I could have passed it.
She didn't want to risk her job.
Well, it's because the problem was that she told me that they sent 20 guys to go do that test, and only one guy's actually passed it. Because apparently the requirement for the test was a corner aluminum weld of T16 and T32s. You had to put two of them together, and then one of each, welding the outside corner. No filler metal. It had to be autogenous and had to be pulse welded and had to look like a robot did it. And you weren't going to get your test results back for 2 weeks. And if your test results came back bad, you got an incomplete assignment and you got sent home.
Oh wow!
No retests.
Damn.
So she just said, I don't know you that well, so I just out of judgment. This job right here is actually a lot more in your field, so go for it. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Now, have you ever busted out on a weld test going from one of these jobs to the next?
Luckily, I haven't. I actually almost did in Fargo. There was they had a workman test that we had to do first before we went on to the D1 test. And one of the guys, actually, he came from Miami, Florida, and he ended up failing the test for the workman test, and he ended up getting sent home. And he didn't get a chance to even do the D1. And then when I got mine done, and then I had to wait for my results the next morning, I hadn't gotten a call yet, so I thought I passed. But then I get a phone call from the project manager about 2 hours before I was supposed to go in for my shift. It said, "Hey, Mike, you failed. You were in a 16th of the limitation, so you got to come back and retest on your route." I was like, "Crap!" So I went back, redid the test, and luckily I passed that time.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, thank God.
So I'm guessing it's always a different test every job you go to because the work's going to be different, right?
For the most part, but most of the tests I've been on have just been D1 tests, and usually they've been the 2G test for the most part with the backing strip and all that stuff. And the only one that I was actually scratching my head for was the X-ray test I had to do for Tennessee, because the fact that you were waiting for 2 weeks, waiting for that results, and supposedly in the job description it said that if you failed it, you were going to be sent home. But the uncertainty is what was driving me crazy. And luckily, when the guy finally comes by, he's like, "Hey, Mike, you passed." I was like, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah, right. Waiting around for 2 weeks. I mean, there's a lot of time to like throw some doubt out there.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, what was crazy is that this the guy who's doing the X-ray, he apparently he's been backlogged because I think it's just him and one other guy, and they're having an X-ray test 4 different facilities, and they've got young bucks coming in fresh out of welding school, and they've got maybe 20, 50 tests coming in. So they're like trying to keep all their paperwork in order and trying to make sure they're stamping everybody that's actually passed and the ones who actually failed. Just trying to keep their butts covered and trying to keep everybody else's covered.
Yeah, and honestly, man, like I do a lot of testing, and sometimes it can be hard to keep track of everything. I really like the system that I've got set up because every test plate that I have, like I've got a routing sheet with it, so anytime that I cut one person's coupons apart, their test number automatically gets stamped onto the sample that gets cut off. So
That's
like,
cool.
especially if I'm doing side bends, I have them, they'll give me their name and I'll mark that on 3 different spots on their test plate. Once I cut it apart, as soon as that, the coupon that's going to get bent or, run through destructive testing, as soon as that comes off the saw, I've got my engraver right there, and I transfer that number right on the spot from one piece to the next, mark it on the routing sheet, and then, because I'll do everything in batches. It's not like I don't do a full and complete test, so I don't cut it apart, take the backing strip off, and then, clean it up and then bend each one. I'll cut everything apart. Then I'll take all the backing strips off. Then I'll grind every one of them down, and then I'll do all the bending. But at least that way I can keep track of, whose coupon is what.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
keep that coupon and all the samples with their paperwork.
right. Yeah, I kind of remember seeing your little video you did with Bo when he did his
Yeah.
flux core test and stuff.
It's that exact setup. But like I had I think the week after Bo was there, I had like 20 students come in from a local Votech school. And so each one of them ran a stick test and each one of them ran a flux core test. So now I've got 40 test plates by Friday in my shop.
Wow.
And so like, I was like, okay, I can't lose track of any of this. So the plate stays with the paperwork. And then I just, as it's going through, I've got like a little system and I don't let anybody in my little bubble while I'm working on this stuff. Because I mean, at the end of the day, that could be somebody's livelihood.
Right.
And I do testing for other companies. There's a company out of North Dakota. I got one in Kentucky and one in Tennessee, and they call me up and they're like, hey, we need to do a weld entry test for, this individual. Here's the welding procedure specification we want them to follow. Here's all the details regarding the test because certain companies have specific hold points or they want them to cut things manually or, something specific to that company.
Right.
So I try to keep everything, with that person's routing sheet.
Mm-hmm.
That way it doesn't get mixed up because like I said, that's somebody's livelihood. And if I screw up and, put a good welder's, test bends with a guy that come in there and just ran a shit pass or something, but pass visual, I don't want to be responsible for that,
Right. And we actually got a little bit of we got a taste of that while I was in welding school. My my instructors, they said that they kind of just gave us the harsh reality of we only got one body and eventually it's gonna crap out on you. So you need to have something to fall back on. So they made us inspectors in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times they when we got given our welding test with whatever it was, we were in charge of the cutting, the inspection. Of course, they came and checked it. We were basically the entry level, and they were our level 2s, making sure that our paperwork was in order. And then we did our roots, we did our hot passes, and then all the cover passes we needed. And then it was wait for it to cool off, took a day off or so. And then it was cut our pieces. And then we did our own face and root test. And we were basically, then they came and take a look, see if we still passed or failed. And if we were within the parameters of the DLAMs. And then they gave us our certs for whatever we passed on.
Dude, and that's such a valuable skill set to have, to know how, just understanding how the testing process works. I think that makes you such a much better, more well-rounded welder when you can inspect your own work and test your own work. Because then firsthand, it's not anybody else's opinion. You throw that root face bend in there and you run it through and all of a sudden it cracks or breaks. And you're like, oh shit, like I knew it, and you can flash back to when you were running that root pass and you're like, I didn't watch it like I should have. When it washed in on the left-hand side, I knew something wasn't right. Boom, it's right there. You can see it.
Yeah.
But when you see that failure, you automatically know exactly how to correct that and prevent it from happening again.
Yeah. What was really the cool part though is that you weren't wasting $500 for a test every time you failed.
Damn, they charge you $500 for a test.
Well, at some places, the school didn't charge us for it. They just said, we're giving you a test run at it. We are CWIs, but this piece of paper, it's going to might help you get to the door at some places, but some people are just going to rip up your paper and just say, we don't care.
Yep.
Go do
you got a test for us.
So, or if there is a test at all, there were a few of my classmates. They they either decided not to go into the welding field for health reasons or family reasons, and some end up going into different lines of work, and some joined the pipeline, some became fabricators, and I became a little bit of everything because I never liked doing the same thing over and over again.
But I mean, it's a good route that you went down because you didn't pigeonhole yourself into something. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that get out of school and they're like, I'm going to do iron work or I'm going to do pipe welding. And then they get out there and nobody's hiring for those jobs. And that's what I used to tell my students. You know, they'd come through the program and they're like, nope, I'm just going to focus on this process because this is what I want to be when I grow up. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. However, you need to practice these other processes because when you graduate, those companies may not be hiring. Like I've been doing this for a while. I know like there's certain times a year companies just aren't hiring for that type of work. Like I know when the iron workers start and, you know, a lot of the, even the non-union guys, they only hire certain times out of the year when work's going good. If you're graduating around Christmas, good luck getting into any industry that involves construction. You need to work on, you know, manufacturing. They're always hiring. So brush up on your MIG, get good on your TIG welding. That's going to carry you through until those employers are ready to start hiring you. So don't be a one-trick pony. And like you did it really well is you're very versatile. Millwright, iron worker, manufacturing, fabrication, custom stuff. If you get laid off tomorrow, you'll have a job the following day, if not by the end of that day.
Oh yeah, that's actually that was the fun part. When I was working for an oil tank company, I only lasted a month because I wasn't meeting their standards as far as production-wise goes. I also think it was just because the foreman and I had a problem with communication because he was Hispanic and he didn't speak English that good, and he tried to tell me something. I thought he said this, but he didn't. And then I'm working on something that wasn't in the priority, and then I'm having to cut the thing off, clean it up, and then take it back to the storage area and go take the piece that I needed to work on, and then slowed up production. And basically, I was being an anchor, and unfortunately, ended up costing me the job. And luckily I had I had my own rig. I wasn't licensed. I didn't have an LLC or anything at the time, but my buddy who had his own business said, "Hey, Mike, I need an extra welder on this plant shutdown over at this plant. Can you give me a hand?" I'm like, "Yep, definitely." It's like, "Yeah, I'll be there. What time you need me there?" It's like 5:00 in the morning. I was like, "Oh, we're starting early."
AM.
And there would be a few times we'd be waiting until 9:00 p.m. and we were there all night trying to get all the pipes put in, get everything everything up and running again, and make sure everything was pressure tested and make sure there weren't any leaks. And then he just tell me about the next job coming up, or if he had some work in his shop that needs to be helped out with, and there I was. And he just unfortunately couldn't keep me busy as much as I'd like to, or at least as far as cushioning wise goes. Still a good guy.
Yeah.
I still stay in touch with him every now and then.
And that's the hard part of like running a small, you know, welding business is you never know when the work's going to dry up. So you got to be pretty well versatile in different things.
Oh yeah. And
most of the guys I know that do structural stuff, they're very versatile when it comes to like gate and handrail fabrication and repairs. You know, so if they're not getting calls left and right for structural jobs, they're staying busy doing like I don't want to say minuscule stuff because you can make ridiculous money doing it, but they have something to fall back on. You know, they've got a small shop with a little roller and a punch and all that stuff. They can go make gates and handrails and all that stuff and just kind of keep things floating until the next big job kicks off.
Yep. And that's actually kind of what I was doing a lot of after that manufacturing job was done. I started trying to focus more in my shop, and I kept getting orders for handrails for people's homes and stuff, but they just wanted something small, nothing decorative. It was just functional. And every now and then I'd run into a job here and there that wanted something decorative or pretty, and then I had to get creative with it and had to figure out ways how to do it. And the work came out great, and it started building my reputation around there. And I ended up doing a lot of this work with my Everlast machine, and did most of the work in my shop. And then whatever work I had to do on site, I had my Ranger 225 available to do all that, at least until my truck crashed out.
Yeah. What Everlast machine are you running?
If I remember correctly, it might be the 252 SI.
Okay.
It's a stick, TIG, and a plasma cutter all in one machine.
Gotcha. Have you had a chance to run their MTS, the Lightning series?
No, I haven't. I was really wanting to when I was at FabTech, but I didn't get a chance to swing over.
Yeah, that was by far my favorite machine. When I was with Weld.com, that was the machine. I was like, okay, it's Monday. We get to weld with the Everlast. Sweet. And it was like, because it'll do every process. It'll do stick, MIG, TIG, flux core, AC, DC. You can spray with it. I mean, the thing it was great. It was a great running machine.
Yeah, and I wanted to get a machine like that, and I had plans on getting one. Just a lot of unfortunate plans happened. COVID kind of screwed it up for one thing, and then unfortunately got divorced, and then was dealing with all that crap and getting deeper into debt, and then just the money wasn't working for me there, so I didn't have the money for my Everlast machine. But I did meet a lot of the people at the booth, and I actually ended up showing them this fire pit I made with all 5 of the Armed Forces emblems cut out and 5 American bald eagle heads. I can't remember what the shape of it's called. Didecagon, I think it's called.
Oh, dodecahedron?
Yeah. It's kind
of looks like a soccer ball.
Yeah, kind of. There's all a bunch of pentagons welded into together. I cut all the emblems out all by hand, and if you ever get a chance to see it, I did the Marines, I did Army, did all of them, and everybody's like, "Wow, you got a CNC machine?" I was like, "No, I did that by hand." They're like, "No way." Damn. I was like, "Yes." They're like, "Why don't you have a CNC machine?" I was like, "My shop doesn't supply me that power, so I have to be the CNC machine."
Yeah.
and a lot of people, like, I showed them some of the pieces being cut because I wasn't big on Instagram yet, and this was before I got big on TikTok or anything, or big. Don't say big. I'm not really that big, but some people know me, some people don't. But they a lot of people just saw the work I did, and they just saw it, and then they asked me what I did for the welding it together. I was like, I TIG welded everything, and they're like, "Why'd you TIG weld it?" I was like, less heat, more prettier on the welds, less warping, and plus I like TIG welding a lot more than sticking.
Oh, and after you weld something up like that, you get pretty damn good at TIG welding.
Oh yeah, especially when you try to have some fun with it and just put in different positions, do downhill,
in position,
do uphill, do a little overhead, try to fuse the corners right properly and everything. Just make it look like it's seamless, and then hit a buff wheel on it if you need to.
Yep. No, that's really cool, man. So are you still doing pieces like that now, or you don't have time because you're bouncing with work and whatnot?
Right now, I don't have the time, and whatever time I actually do have when I go home, I do try to work in my shop a little bit, but I'm kind of limited on what I can do because since I don't have a truck anymore, I can't haul steel. I can't haul sheets of steel anymore. So I'm basically down to scrap pieces here and there and rusted horseshoes, which luckily with my little bit of background in blacksmithing, I'm able to make little crazy pieces here and there for people, or some that's just entertaining my head.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have a blacksmith association out where you're at?
We kind of do. It's just it's a small little thing, but it's just a bunch of men that get together every once a week or so. Some guy named James Tower, he's known as the Blacksmith Pastor on YouTube, and he hit me up and asked me if I'd like to come to their little event, and he just told me that it's like basically it's old school. You're running a forge. There are no power hammers. There's no welding. And if there's any welding, it's all forge welding, and you're beating steel into whatever the challenge is. And it could be a spoon, it could be a fork, or it could be basically anything you could think of, or whatever the previous person who won the challenge, whatever he came up with, and then you just have to kind of replicate it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I haven't had a chance to go to one, but I'm hoping to try to go to one when my contract ends here, but I'm not setting anything in stone yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, look into, because I've said it before on the podcast, we have the Florida Artist Blacksmith Association, FABA. and I think they have one in every state. So I don't know exactly if or where Kansas would have one,
It
but
would
maybe
likely
check that out.
It would most likely be in Wichita or Topeka.
Well, because we have, I want to say we got 3 or 4 of them here in Florida. So it's kind of like AWS section meetings. Like it's kind of broke up into different areas. So we got one in North Florida, we got one in Central Florida, there's one in South Florida, and then every year they have like a big FABA meeting where all the different regions, kind of join up in. I think they go to Jacksonville or Ocala. So I haven't been to the annual event yet. I haven't. Every time they do the annual event, I'm always traveling somewhere, so I always miss it.
Right.
Because I think last time I was at the inspectors, or not the inspectors, I think I was at the the Automation Expo up in Columbus. So I missed it. And hopefully I can make it this year. But they usually do it in October, which I'm guessing it's probably going to be right smack dab in the middle of FabTech, so I can't go again because I'm not missing FabTech, especially when it comes to Orlando. Look up. It might be called like CABA, like KABA, because it's usually whatever the state is, Artist Blacksmith Association.
Yeah, I'll have to do some looking on that. Yeah, you got your hands full, especially with FabTech coming just around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I got an email notification from the AWS about your little event that you're holding up.
Yeah, Matt. So I wasn't sure if they put it out there yet, but Matt Bartles and I are going to host Arcs Nails.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think this time it has to be RSVP only. So once people see that link, they should probably register early because the facility where they're going to host the event can only take so many people.
I already signed in, so I'm good to go.
Oh, there you go. I haven't RSVP'd yet, but I'm hoping to let me in because I'm hosting it. So
well, I would sure hope so. You're kind of the whole point.
It depends on who's guarding the door,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because last time it was in Chicago, and man, that was hectic and packed.
Oh, dude, there was no room.
Yeah,
it was literally elbow to elbow, and like you gotta take a deep breath and think thin like the whole time you're in there.
Oh yeah, trust me. Me and another guy came from the event center, and we didn't know. Me and him haven't been to Chicago ever, so we were kind of clueless on how close it was. So we actually get in my car and we're trying to find this place. And we end up doing like 3 laps around, and then we see a bunch of people that we saw at FabTech already going into the place. And I was like, we were right next door to it the whole damn time.
Yep.
And so, we ended up getting parked, and then we ended up joining. And then by the time we got upstairs, we were like, holy crap, it's packed.
Oh, yeah, because they put us, the upstairs room, and it was literally like, it was hard to drink a beer. Like, you got to hold it like close to your chin so you can take a sip every now and then.
Yeah, shoot, it was still a lot of fun, though. Meeting all the people there. And first time I got to meet you and Stephanie Hoffman and everybody else. And I was just, to be honest, I was a little bit of in a starstruck mode. I was like, holy crap, these are the faces of welding. And I'm in there, I'm meeting them face to face.
I don't know about all that, man. I put my pants on the same way everybody else does. 2 legs at a time, right?
I know, but still, it's the fact of the matter is that when people think about the American Welding Society or welding in general, it's you, Bob Moffitt, Jody from Tips and Tricks, Stephanie Hoffman, and they might mention one of the metal shop master people that were on that show on Netflix, and people just know those people.
It's pretty cool, man. So like we're doing Arcs Nails. I think that's gonna be that Wednesday night. I think I got to double check. I'll have to find the link and I'll post that in the show notes if I got it. But we're also doing, like, you remember last year because you went to the Weld Porn Blue Demon meetup and all that.
Yeah, the Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah, we're doing that again, but it's going to be at the Universal City Walk. So the Hard Rock Live at Universal City Walk here in Orlando. That's going to be on October 15th from 7 to 10 p.m.
Yeah, the crazy thing is I didn't know about that whole thing until Mullet Welder.
Joey.
Yeah, Joey. I ran into him because me and him we're both spokesmen for Bokomal and stuff, and he was there for the Hidden Heroes Foundation. But we got to meet him and his wife in person and everything, and that was awesome because I only saw their faces on Instagram and on TikTok. And then he's like, "Hey, you going to the party tonight?" I was like, "What party?" He said the Hard Rock Cafe in Chicago. I was like, "I didn't hear nothing about it." And they're like, "Okay, well, you're new at this, so you're not up there yet." So they told me the details of where the place was, and I go and then I to see you. I see Stephanie. I see Ray Ripple, Ivan Idler. Ivan, I was like, holy crap. I was like, I'm in awe right now.
It's a good time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And especially some of the people I had never heard of and then ended up becoming good friends with. And we stay in touch every now and then, or we just like we'll share or comment on our stuff. And just it's one of those things, those networking that just really helped out with growing my page and helping everybody else grow their reputations up more. And it was just a lot to take in.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, that's what it's all about. Like I say it all the time, it turns into a family reunion. You know, because everybody's like Kansas, Ohio, Jersey, PA, Florida, California, Texas, and we all get together. You know, like that's the one event that kind of brings everybody together throughout the entire year.
Yeah, it just leaves on the good news is that you don't got family there asking you for money or something.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, the only thing I actually got to miss out on was the formal thing that they had the next night.
Yeah, usually the AWS President's Reception.
Yeah, I didn't know nothing about it, so I was like, oh, I guess I'm skipping out on this one. And I don't know if they're doing it this year again, but...
They do it every year. I don't know the exact dates, but yeah, it's definitely a formal event. I've talked about that on the show before. Yeah. I showed up in jeans and a freaking welding jacket one time. It was really awkward, but and I knew better. But anyway, I digress. It's a good time. But yeah, definitely a suit and tie type of deal. But I think they kick that off. I think it's usually either the night before FabTech starts or the night that FabTech starts. And it depends on, I think, which location, whether it's going to be at Chicago, Atlanta, Vegas. Like I've been doing FabTech since like 2016 and I still have not nailed it down which night it's going to be on. And I think that's because it changes depending on, because like sometimes I keep thinking FabTech starts on Monday. Apparently it doesn't start till Tuesday. So it's really screwing me up.
Yeah, definitely. And
I'm going to be standing at the convention center a day early, be like, where the hell is everybody?
Yeah, that knowing me, that's probably what I'd be doing too, because I'm a little over prepared and trying to jump on something and trying to get ahead of it. Because I mean, that's kind of how I am. I show up early and I'm usually there until the boss just says go home.
Yeah. Now, because of your work schedule and everything, are you going to be able to make it to the Orlando FabTech this year?
Oh, I plan to. I need to just let them know ahead of schedule, and I need to let them know when I need to leave and how long it'll be till I'm back. Mm-hmm. And then usually they let the place know, and then as long as they're aware, then they're fine with it. And just as long as I don't go AWOL and disappear, they're fine. Yeah. The fun part is going to be wherever I'm going to be at that time. If I'm going to be able to drive, or if I'm going to have to fly and get a rental car and talk to the owner of Boca Mall to make sure everything's squared away and good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you if you were in a Boca Mall shirt, because I think I've got the same one, the black and lime green.
Yeah, it's actually one of their shorts. Actually, there's one of their short sleeve ones that they got.
Okay, I don't have any of their short sleeves. I got 3 of their long sleeves, and dude, I literally wear them damn near every day. Like I'll wear it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, wash them all, and then wear it Thursday and Friday. They're super comfy.
Oh yeah, my closet's full of Boca Mall stuff, and I'm talking jeans, shirts, short sleeves, long sleeves. I even got hoodies, but
I didn't even know they made jeans.
Yeah, they made jeans. I
just got their shirts.
Yeah, I got a pair of their jeans on right now.
Okay.
These are actually way more comfortable and breathable compared to Wranglers.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wear is the Wranglers. And it's like I buy, it's funny because I'll go to Tractor Supply and I buy 3 pair of the exact same Wranglers, and then I buy 2 pair of the exact same Wranglers. So I get 3 in the dark blue and then 2 in the light blue. Yep. And that's all I wear year round. And they'll literally last me those 5 pair of jeans will last me 1 year. And then I'm back to Tractor Supply buying 5 new pair.
And I mean, most jeans didn't last that long for me because my line of work, I was always putting my body in ungodly positions, and either my pants would rip or my ass was skating against the concrete, and next thing you know, I'm getting a breeze on my backside. I'm just like, so there's a few times where I'd be in the middle. There was actually one time when I was leading stretches, my pants just ripped right when I was bending over, and just pretty much I just mooned the crane operators, and I was like, thank God I wore underwear today.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a job where I can sit down today, guys. You got any bench work for me? A little TIG?
I was actually at the company that was doing those wind turbines and the solar panels when that happened, and they were actually having me in the water truck, and I was spraying the ground trying to keep it damp so that the dust didn't blow everywhere and cause breathing problems for people.
Oh yeah.
So luckily I was covered.
There you go. Now, I was going to ask you with the company that you're working with now, because you're bouncing from one spot to the next, and obviously these companies need help. That's why they're bringing in contractors and stuff to get them caught up. Did they ever offer you a job to be like, hey, Mike, if you want to stay around, you've been jamming this stuff out, we'd like to hire you on full time. I mean, do you have that option or ability? I mean, obviously it's a right to work state, most of them, but do you get offers like that to stay behind?
Yeah, we can get offered jobs to stay on full time, but the rule of thumb is that with this company is, in order for us to become a full time employee, the company that wants to hire us, they have to buy us out of our contract. They have to negotiate what we want for pay rate, and if we need a budget to relocate to their location, what they'll do for us. And if we agree to it, then they'll buy us out of our contract, and then we work for them. But if I ever leave the company I'm with, I cannot go to a company I've worked for them for a year and a half. So I can't.
You got like a non-compete.
Yeah, it's kind of a non-poaching clause in their contract.
Oh, okay.
Like I can't go to the company I'm working at in Kentucky and offer these guys a job, because then that becomes conflict of interest, and then it can cost everybody else that's got a contract. It can cost them their job, and then it can cause lawyers to get involved and stuff. But if we're gone for about a year and a half, and if David or somebody else down the road decides, hey Mike, I left so and so place, and I'm wanting to get on the road and stuff. Can come join, and I'll send a recommendation over, as long as they haven't worked for them for 6 months, I think this is their minimum. Then they'll take them on, and they just got to make sure that they don't ever put them in that location and cause a issue.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, it's probably a good reason that they've got that set up in place, so that the companies that are going to help doesn't take all their good workers and stuff. And
yeah, we kind of have to deal with the same thing when it comes to whenever we have to work at a union shop or something. We have to follow their rules and their stuff. And even in Fargo, they told us that we can only work up to 460 hours total. But once we hit that 460, we were gone, and we couldn't come back for a year.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's just to please the union or to please their bosses. It's just so everybody's happy. And most of us were fine with being there for 3 months to 6 months. It just kind of depends on the worker and how much he's settled down or is anxious to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, if somebody wanted to get involved with this line of work, the type of stuff that you're doing, what's the best way for them to just put a resume out on Indeed, or what's the best way to get in on the same type of work that you're doing?
Well, what I did was I went on Indeed and just looked for travel welding, and then there'll be some companies that will just pop up. Aerotech's one that's some people may know, and that's actually who got me on with those union workers who were there in my neck of the woods. And the other company that I met 3 or 4 different companies out there that just had guys from that different deals and packages with their benefits and what exactly they got joining the company and stuff. Like for us, we get our hotels covered for, and we get a little bit of per diem, and we get our usually weekly paychecks and stuff, and the usual minimum of work hours that we're supposed to work.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to ask, is travel welding and stuff. Do they cover your per diem, or do they cover your hotel room, or do they cover both?
Depends on the location. Just this one just covers the hotel and gives us a little bit of per diem. Some of the other locations, some of the guys that I've met, they had just per diem, and they had to arrange for their own housing and stuff, whether they were having campers or if they were crashing in hotel rooms, is how they usually try to manage it properly. And this works for us, for the majority of us that are here.
It's a good way to do it.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, because even if they're covering your hotel room, you still need per diem because you got to eat outside of working hours. Plus, you need to take lunch with you every day and whatnot.
Yeah, luckily some of the hotels we end up staying at, they're suites, so they'll have a stovetop or a little bit of or if some of us will bring crock pots with us or little toaster ovens or something, and some of us try to do our meal prep ahead of schedule or try to survive on sandwiches and ramen.
There you go. I've done that before.
Yep.
Still doing that today. And freaking Vienna sausages and ramen and Chef Boyardee and all that.
Yep. Just do what you got to until you get home, and then get yourself a nice piece of steak and cook something, enjoy your time with your family and stuff.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Well, hell, man, before we get out of here, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? I know you've got, you're all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all that good stuff. Why don't you go ahead and plug your socials?
Okay, my Instagram is Big Mike Custom Steel, and on my TikTok, I am Big Mike 326. And you can see my videos, you can see some of my artwork that I've done, or just some random humorous videos that might give you a laugh and might give you a chuckle.
Awesome. Are you on LinkedIn yet?
No, I've been wanting to get on that.
You're missing an opportunity, man. As soon as we get off the line here, you need to set you up a LinkedIn profile.
I'll get on that.
Yeah, we meet a lot of cool people on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, brother. It was great chatting with you, man. Thanks for your time, and, stay safe out there.
Yep, thank you, Jason.
All right, ladies and gents, I hope you all enjoyed the show. If you're finding these episodes beneficial to your welding journey, please leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and consider sharing the episodes with a friend. You can also stream episodes directly from my website, arcjunkies.com, and feel free to hit me up with any questions, comments, or concerns by sending an email to show@arcjunkies.com. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.